Christ, this episode was jam-packed. I wasn't sure what to make of this episode when I saw the preview, and it appeared to be a lot of slice-of-life shenanigans. Coming off of the insane climax that was last week, I wasn't sure how it would fit into this story. But I am happy to say that I am so surprised with how good this episode was. I was not prepared for how much I would end up loving it. And that's primarily because of the vibes, man. This was just such a feel-good episode, filled with camaraderie and likable character moments. But before we even talk about that shit, we need to talk about something else. Something very important. Trigger? A1? They did it. They actually did it. New opening, baby! Now, I was aware there would be a new opening for this episode after I saw it on Twitter, but I had my expectations tempered when hearing that it would just be new visuals, no new song. And while that is technically true, the new visuals in question are so much better than opening 1. This second opening puts the first to fucking shame, man. It's just so goddamn good. And the song itself, while being the same, is actually a remix or a re-rendition of sorts, so even that felt fresh and cool. Just incredible, man, and on top of it just being complete flames, there is a ton to analyze. So much so that since A1 and Trigger delivered, I will be making a separate analysis video on the second opening. Expect that within the next few days because there is just so much to dissect. Hello everybody, I am PhenomSage and welcome back to another Darling in the Franxx episode review. Today we are going to be talking about episode 16, Days of Our Lives. And as I mentioned in the intro, easily my favorite aspect about this episode was the camaraderie and good vibes that we got. We've obviously gone through the entire series dealing with numerous conflicts between characters and always some drama unfolding, so it was really nice here to just see everyone getting along. Everyone's happy. And while there were a few minor conflicts throughout, we still ended on a positive note and our team actually feel like friends. Partners. I've wanted this for so long, so it's just so nice to see it finally happening. While we're on the topic of conflicts, we might as well transition that into the brief scuffles that we got into this episode. And of course, this being a Futoshi episode, the one that I found the most interesting was Futoshi's struggle to diet and lose weight. Now, we talked about this in passing after Mitsuru just went all Mr. Steal Your Girl on Futoshi, but it's here where we see it actually coming to fruition. We can naturally assume that he wants to lose weight to win Kokoro back, or at least in some capacity feel better about himself compared to Mitsuru. And I just have to say that this is how you make me care about Futoshi. This is how you make him a sympathetic character. Not having him get cucked and get all whiny about it, but to actually show his personal issues with tact and nuance. He's not overt about his problems, in fact he wanted to keep it a secret, and that alone makes him easier to root for than before. Really dig what they're doing with Futoshi right now. I hope that we continue exploring that into future episodes. The other conflict to discuss is of course the inner turmoil of Zerome and even extended to the rest of the group, feeling abandoned by Papa and APE itself. And to talk about this, I want to bring up the use of prayer in this episode. For one, there's a funny moment near the beginning where the group are praying to Papa, thanking him for the food that they were provided, and while they are, 02 is just eating without a single care in the world. Just a nice detail that I really appreciated. But the more interesting stuff comes later on, after the group have hunted and cooked food for the first time in their lives. As they begin to pray, Zerome starts eating himself, saying that if they're responsible for making this feast, then why should they have to pray and be grateful to Papa? This is of course a huge turn for Zerome's character, as we know he is unequivocally the most devoted and faithful toward Papa and headquarters. But he can't keep up the facade for long because towards the end of this conflict with Futoshi, Zerome begins to feel emotional himself, abandoned and alone, deserted by the one that he trusted the most. This marks a new beginning for everyone, as Hiro makes a statement that their lives are not exclusively meant for piloting the Franxx or even fighting. This is their life, and the others have their eyes open to an existence they never knew they wanted. This ties into some nice hero progression that we see through a single line spoken from Goro, as he talks about feeling antsy without any kind of fight to partake in, and that he's surprised because he figured that Hiro would be the most obsessed and eager to get back into a Franxx. I really dig the way that this shows how Hiro's priorities have changed. He no longer has that deep-seated desire to prove himself and to pilot a Franxx. All he wants now is a life of peace with Zero Two. Speaking of Hiro and Zero Two, there is a really nice conversation between the two as they walk down this dirt path, where Zero Two spots some Sakura buds, never having seen them before, and Hiro telling her about them and how they match the color of her hair. For one, this is just a really fucking cute moment between them, and for two, we know that this ties directly into the beginning of episode 1. All the way back during that flashback sequence at the beginning, as her and what we assume to be Hiro are walking through a path filled with Sakura petals, alluding to the fact that this scene will happen in the future at some point. I don't necessarily agree with your guys' predictions that this is the final scene in the series, but I do agree that this will definitely be happening in the future at one point or another. Adding on top of all that, Sakura is just a really interesting theme to explore, as in the opening we can see in one of the final shots Hiro hugging Zero Two, but her passing through him as she fades into Sakura. Yeah, that's not foreboding at all, is it? I'll save all my thoughts on that for the opening analysis video, but in general, it's very intriguing thematically. And the final piece of character building that we get is regarding Mitsuru and Kokoro, and all I have to say for this is the ship has sailed, baby! I know there were a lot of theories regarding Mitsuru being gay, but I feel like the events here put those theories to rest. I still think that Mitsuru's affection and turmoil regarding Hiro was all rooted in admiration and respect, more so than a romantic love. Also, bless that new haircut, Mitsuru is just climbing the best boy rankings as of right now. But speaking of Mitsuru and Kokoro, there is some very concerning foreshadowing in the new ED, which I haven't said anything about, but is flames, by the way. But in the ED, we actually get a shot of Kokoro in the embrace of who we assume to be Mitsuru. But in the very next shot, we see Kokoro sitting on the stairs, alone and seemingly depressed. Now, this is alluding to one of two things. Either Mitsuru ends up leaving Kokoro, or Mitsuru just got some death flags planted on him. I feel like the death flags are more likely just because of how much we went through to get these two together. I doubt that anything would separate them emotionally at this point. But, of course, it does make me fucking scared. You can't be killing Mitsuru just as you're starting to make him likable. Speaking of the ED and foreshadowing, we get another very interesting shot where we see Ikuno about to kiss Ichigo. Are they going through with this? Is Nishigori going through with this? Will Ichigo feel the same way now that she's over Hiro? How much pain does my boy Goro have to go through to get cucked not once, but twice? Just something interesting to think about. Of course, I don't necessarily think that everything in the ED is set in stone for sure what will happen throughout the series, but it's obviously hinting towards various plot elements. Alright, I've kept you guys waiting long enough. Now it's time to talk about the major world building details that we got in this episode. For one, and what will probably be on most people's minds at the moment, is who is that person at the end? Who is it? And of course, most people will probably jump to this being the princess or the leader of the Klaxosaurs. This holds even more weight when taking into consideration APE's conversation near the beginning of the episode, where Papa comments on how he sent 2 messengers to you-know-where to give them a final warning, and then makes a comment afterwards speculating, "Now Klaxosaur Princess, what will you choose?" This changes a lot because up to this point, Klaxosaurs have been nameless beasts, so the fact that there is at least one intelligent being among them that APE is trying to negotiate with is very interesting. Another interesting thing to note is something that was brought up to me on Discord. In the song Vanquish from the OST, if you listen to the lyrics, you can see that the very first song played in the series actually foreshadowed the events of episode 13, all from the very beginning. Lines refer referring to Zero Two and Hiro's past. But above that, at the very beginning of the song, you can see lines talking about a mother doting on the singer of the song and calling her special. Since the lyrics are framed from the viewpoint of Zero Two, this leaves a lot of speculation regarding on if this Klaxosaur princess is Zero Two's mother, which I think most people will assume it is, especially due to her design being so similar. This is a brightened image of that scene, and you can see that the colors are spot on. It is worth noting that this is a completely different appearance from how she appears in the opening, and she very well may be just blue and white. Only time will tell. The two questions I have at this point are: 1, how did this mysterious Klaxosaur princess and Zero Two end up getting separated? And 2, will she end up being an ally or a villain in the future? From everything that's been hinted so far and her disposition towards APE, you'd think that she would be an ally. In fact, I could see our squad teaming up with her and the Klaxosaurs to take down APE, which would just be so cool. Another really interesting yet incredibly depressing piece of world building that we receive is regarding the aging of our pilots. Last episode, I brought up the Werner theory and how it related to the captain of Squad 26 aging rapidly to the point where he appeared as an old man, and how I wasn't sure if our squad were just immune to this or if we'll start aging ourselves soon. Well, it looks like the latter is what's going on, because we get a brief shot of Zero Two looking at Miku's hair, which has begun sprouting grays. It's interesting that Zero Two decided to ignore this, like she knows what it implies but doesn't want to say anything. Judging by Miku's expression and reaction, she too knows what's going on. And the last piece of bulky world building that we get here is Dr. Franxx's decision to leave the children alone, despite Nana's wishes and proclamation that they would be assets to Papa due to how much they've had to endure. This is only my guess at this point, but could Dr. Franxx want them to be alone and fend for themselves so that they can learn to be self-sufficient? Maybe because he's planning or even counting on them to rebel against APE on their own. I could definitely see this being the case, and it's probably what he had in mind all along. What's kind of foreboding in this conversation between Nana and Dr. Franxx is by the end of it. After the doctor has disappeared and Nana is left arguing with nothing, the scene concludes with Nana cringing as her head begins to hurt. Nothing more is said about this, and the scene kind of just ends. But it's definitely a weird addition to just throw in there for no reason. Is something happening to the adults as well as the children? Is it something specific to Nana? Who knows, but I would be very interested to hear what you guys have to say about that. And one final world building note to make before we end this off is during the conversation between APE, we actually get a shot of Hringhorny, or at least a part of it, that appears to be a gigantic sword. This only further reinforces my theory of Hringhorny being a gigantic Franxx unit, and I cannot wait to see it in action. Oh baby. But that has been all from me for this Darling in the Franxx episode review. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, just overall such a great episode and great follow-up to last week. It gives us time to breathe and finally see everyone fully acting as friends and comrades. I especially like that Ichigo really has fully moved on from Hiro. I feel like people will say it's too sudden, but she literally entered his mind and saw that he would never feel the same way about her. If that wouldn't make her give up, I have no idea what would. And I really like the line from her saying that she finally understands why Zero Two is a human. She's just like them, and that she wants the best not just for Hiro, but for her as well. Just a really pleasant turn of events and changes to characters that I am enjoying a lot. If you enjoyed anything I had to say here, I would really appreciate it if you liked the video, and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more of my content in the future. And of course, as usual, have a great day.